Have you ever had one of those moments where you do something and then immediately think, why on earth did I just do that? Or maybe you find yourself stuck in the same reaction over and over again. Well, today we're going to dive into some powerful ideas from Nick Trenton's book, The Art of Self-Therapy, which is basically a guide to answering those exact questions and really taking the driver's seat in your own emotional world.
So this is the book that inspired this whole explainer. What we're going to do is break down some of its core psychological tools. The goal here is to take what might seem like really complex therapy concepts and turn them into practical steps you can actually understand and, maybe even start using in your own life.
So let's just start with that one big question, the one I'm willing to bet every single one of us has asked ourselves, why do I do that? It's that moment of pure confusion when our own behavior just doesn't make sense to us. And as we're about to see, that simple question can be the launchpad for an absolutely incredible journey of self-discovery.
So what is self-therapy anyway? Let's get a clear definition based on the ideas in this book. And look, it's super important to say this right up front. This isn't about replacing professional therapy. Not at all. It's about equipping yourself with a better toolbox for understanding you.
At its heart, it's really all about empowerment. It's about taking the very same tools that psychologists use and learning how to apply them to your own inner world. And the whole point? To move from feeling like you're just a passenger, kind of at the mercy of your old habits, to being the one who consciously chooses the life you actually want to live.
All right, so where does a journey like this even begin? Well, it starts by looking inward. To really, truly answer that question, why do I do that? We have to get to know all the different parts that make up who we are. Yeah. Even the ones we've maybe been trying to ignore for a while.
Now, this is such a fascinating concept from the psychologist Carl Jung. He called it the shadow. And it's not about the evil part of you or anything like that. It's just all the parts of yourself, good or bad, that you were taught you had to hide to fit in. Maybe you were told being ambitious was bossy or that being sensitive was weak, so you shoved those qualities into the shadows. But here's the thing. Just because we push them out of sight doesn't mean they actually go away. And I love this slide because it gives us another way to see our inner world through a model called internal family systems. Just imagine your mind is like a little family. You've got the manager. That's the part that's always planning, trying to keep everything under control so you don't feel bad. Then you've got the firefighter. This part jumps in when you get triggered and tries to put out the emotional fire with quick fixes like, scrolling on your phone or grabbing a snack. And then there's the exile. This is the part that holds all the old hurts, the shame, the pain from the past. The goal isn't to get rid of them, it's to understand them so they can all work together.
So if we have this whole family inside our minds, where'd they come from? How did they learn all these jobs? Well, our inner world doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's shaped by our past. Our very first relationships create this kind of blueprint that ends up influencing how we connect with people for the rest of our lives. In a perfect world, if our caregivers were consistent and loving, we develop what's called a secure attachment style. Think of this as having a really solid foundation for every relationship you'll ever have. It gives you this deep sense of trust and self-worth, which lets you be totally independent, but also deeply connected to people without being afraid.
But what if that early care was unpredictable? Sometimes they were there for you, sometimes they weren't. That can lead to what's called an ambivalent or anxious attachment style. As an adult, this can feel like this constant low-grade anxiety in your relationships. This deep-down fear that the people you love are going to leave you, which makes you always look for reassurance. Then there's the other side of the coin. If your early caregivers were distant or rejecting, that can lead to an avoidance style. A kid in that situation learns, okay, to protect myself, I'm just not going to need anyone. And that can create an adult who is incredibly independent and self-reliant, but for whom real intimacy, real vulnerability, feels terrifying, almost like a threat.
And finally, you have the most complex style, which is disorganized attachment. This often comes from a childhood that was chaotic or even frightening. It creates this intense internal conflict, a deep, deep craving for closeness, but at the exact same time, a massive fear of it. Figuring out which of these blueprints you might be working from is a total game changer because it helps you finally see the unconscious patterns you might be playing out in your life right now.
Okay, so we've looked inward at our different parts, and we've looked backward at our past's blueprint. Now let's talk about the operating system that runs the whole show, our thoughts. Trenton frames this so well. He says our thoughts are literally the code that programs our reality. And the best news is, we can actually learn to debug that code. This is a classic tool called the ABCD model, and it's designed to help you slow down your automatic reactions. Think about it. A, an activating event happens. That's the trigger. It runs through B, your belief system. That's your interpretation of the event.
and that creates C, the consequences, how you feel and what you do. But the real power, the place where you take back control, is in D, dispute. This is where you learn to pause and actually challenge that belief. And that dispute step is so powerful because of this one simple but profound idea. Our deepest core beliefs, the ones like I'm not good enough or I always mess things up, they feel like absolute facts. But as Trenton says here, they aren't facts. They are just thoughts we've repeated over and over and over until they feel true. They're stories. And you know what? Stories can be rewritten.
And that brings us to the final and honestly, the most empowering part of this whole journey. Gaining all this insight is amazing, but it's not complete until you pair it with action. This is where you stop being just an archaeologist digging through your past, and you become the architect of your future. So let's just put it all together. The journey of self-therapy looks something like this. First, you look inward. You meet all the parts of yourself, even the shadow. Then, you look backward to understand the blueprint your past gave you. And finally, you learn to master your own thoughts, to challenge the code that's been running your life. Each step builds on the one before it, giving you a complete map to your own inner world.
Ultimately, this entire process is about recognizing one incredibly powerful truth. You are the author of your own life story. Yeah, the past may have written the first few chapters, but right now, today, the pen is in your hand. So the only real question left is the one you see right here. What comes next? Well, that's up to you.